Hi, I'm Tom Russell with Furniture Today, and we are here at Horizon Home with Felipe, Ralph, and Alan Orozco. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to spend with us here. We are at the Chipilo, one of the Chipilo factories here in Puebla, in the Puebla region. So again, thank you for taking time to be with us today, and we're looking forward to telling some of your story.
Thanks for being here, Tom.
Yes,
Great.
thank you. Well, I guess I'd start off. We were talking on the van ride over, Felipe, and we were speaking about some of the interesting history of Puebla and how this industry got started. And could you kind of share a little bit of that and how it came to be what it is today?
Well, I first came here 25 years ago. I was sourcing rustic furniture back in the early 90s, mid 90s, for a large furniture importer in the United States. Mm-hmm. We developed a rustic line, and when I first came to Chipilo, I saw this bustling town with pickup trucks, trailers being hauled behind the pickup trucks, loaded with furniture. And I said, what's going on here? And as I was driving by, I saw several homes had a little plaque in front of their house with a number that they were a subcontractor for a major manufacturer of rustic furniture here in Chipilo. Mm-hmm. I come to find out that there was close to 90 different subcontractors. And these folks were primarily just dairy farmers, mm-hmm. whether they had a half a dozen cows in the back of their homes, or they had larger dairy farms, but they were making furniture right in the same place. Wow. It was like something I've never seen before. In the morning, lumber was being delivered to them, and in the early evening, the furniture was going back to the mother factory to be sanded, finished. Back then it was a wax finish, mm-hmm. packed, and then shipped to the United States. Most of the people here are immigrants from Italy. In the late 1800s, in a region close to Venice, these folks migrated over here, and they brought their dairy farm know-hows here to this region. And they are vast landowners here. And as this phenomenon that I saw in furniture in the mid-90s happened, it flourished to be a furniture town here in Chipilo, Puebla.
Wow. And now here we are today. And how would you say the town or the region in general has kind of developed? We understand, I mean, how is this different from, say, Guadalajara, for example, in terms of the markets it serves, or the type of furniture that's produced here in this area?
Well, the first thing that I see here differently is that I would say 99% of these folks here were born building rustic furniture when they got into the furniture business, in the manufacturing.
Which was very big at that when you got it.
It was huge.
Big. Yes.
It was huge. I mean, back in the 90s, as Felipe shared with me, is that it was almost like the first lifestyle furniture that broke out mm-hmm. into the United States.
Mm-hmm. Critical mass across the country, mm-hmm. From coast to coast.
Yes.
Baby boomers back then were in their late 30s and early 40s. Formal was not that big anymore, formal furniture. Mm-hmm. And rustic was amazing how much
hot.
It was very hot. It was very hot. Mm-hmm. And here in this town, what I see now, close to 30 years later, is that within 5 miles, you have from a shop to a mid-sized factory to a large factory, you have close to 100 establishments around here. Very, very close by. That's why we're building our new distribution center here right next door.
Mm-hmm. And do most of these folks, these factories or these workshops, are they serving primarily, like, is it for export primarily in this area? Or how would you kind of see the market that they serve?
I think that these factories that were born as rustic subcontractors, I would say close to 90%, or very close to that, their production is for export reasons.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
the United States, Canada, or even into the European market.
So furniture really is huge here for these markets.
Yes.
And in Guadalajara, obviously, we know there's exports as well, but is that more for the domestic, would you say, in Guadalajara, or is it, how would you kind of describe? Because we were talking about that a little bit, Felipe, in the
were.
car.
There's a combination in Guadalajara that's different from here.
Yeah.
There's a region called Ocotlan, which is in the outskirts of Guadalajara, which largely serves the domestic market. And there's a lot of domestic manufacturers in Guadalajara that serve the middle price point market to upper end market. I mean, we're talking about the design styling also of Mexico, which is a lot more contemporary versus in the U.S. is more of a transitional feel.
Yes.
Soft, modern, let's say. They don't really go for low scale, hard seat,
Yes.
chrome, and all this
Sure.
as much as they do in Mexico.
I see.
So you find a lot more of that in Guadalajara. You also have it here for the domestic market, but it's normally a more sophisticated factory that can use those elements. Basically, you're using a lot of veneers, a lot of different finishes for contemporary metal work.
Yeah.
So the rustic factory is more like a solid wood factory.
I see.
Okay? And that lends itself for a lot of the product that's being exported to the U.S.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
And then Guadalajara also is a major hub for upholstery.
Yes, indeed.
A lot more upholstery is done and centralized in Guadalajara than here in Puebla.
I see. I see.
And that's also mostly for the domestic market,
I see.
the upholstery.
Yeah. And we were just in Monterrey, San Pedro area, where they're doing some upholstery, which seems to be largely for export to companies like Palliser, and now Kuka Home is up in that area too. So it's kind of interesting to see. But we want to kind of help our audience understand, well, why did you folks choose Puebla? And one of the reasons is companies like Horizon Home have a big presence here. Now, you were saying 6 factories that you work with in this area. Could you tell us a little bit about the interesting positioning between Horizon Home and these factories? Because it sounds like you're very integrated into these production facilities.
Well, most of these folks, by coming here for over a quarter of a century,
Yes.
most of them are friends. We know a lot of these people that own factories. Some of them we do business with, some of them we don't, but they're still friends. But each factory flourished again from being a pine, wax finished, rustic factory back from the early 90s. And as each factory matures, each owner is different. Each factory infrastructure, equipment, building, what their capabilities are different. Where we come in, when we partner up with a factory, is that we try to bring that factory up to a new level.
Yes.
The market is asking for new product,
Yes.
more up-to-date product. But we try to teach our partners here in Puebla is that the competition is not the factory across the street. The competition is global. Our customers, when they come to our showrooms in the United States, they're seeing product when they come with us from Mexico, and they could go across the hall and they're seeing product from Vietnam or from Indonesia.
And it's interesting because you shared with some of the factories, which we thank you for, some of the videos that we did in Vietnam, kind of helping to communicate this is what they're doing in Vietnam as part of the global sourcing world of furniture.
And the reason we did that, Tom, is that factories need to understand who's the customer. Okay? We partner up with them to bring them to a higher level. The engineering, the design, the sourcing of the material. As I shared with you, a factory that partners up with Horizon Home, we negotiate the key materials. So they come underneath the cluster of Horizon Home. So they benefit from being a stronger buying, purchasing power. So we get the best price for all the factories that work for Horizon Home on lumber, finishing materials, hardware, fasteners.
Yes.
And we want them to understand, again, that the competition is not just Chipilo Puebla. or just Mexico. The competition is global.
Yes.
Controlling the sourcing of the raw materials, so what we do, it enables us to maintain a level standard of quality in our products throughout every collection of every factory that's involved with Horizon Home. And that's important because everybody's used to a certain type of quality from us, a certain standard. The glides, they're all the same. The construction of our boards are all the same. The quality of the lumbers is consistent. So that, because we're working with different factories, if we didn't do that, you would have some wide inconsistencies as far as quality level along the line.
Sure. And obviously, as a solid wood manufacturer of furniture, you want to use the best materials that you can. So Chilean pine is one of your biggest raw materials. Can you tell us a little bit why that's so important?
Well, in Guadalajara, where we make Copper Canyon, for example, our Copper
Yes.
Canyon collection, and several other, many years ago, we started off buying from Arauco. Arauco is probably one of the largest wood suppliers in the world. State-of-the-art kiln dry facilities, a major source of lumber supply.
And a sustainable resource
Yeah.
as well.
Yes,
Big
and good point.
reforestation
Interesting. Yes.
So that's important that we are buying from a supplier that the wood comes from reforestation.
Yes.
I understand that for every tree that they cut down, they plant 7 trees
That's
to,
huge.
to replace
Yes.
that. And we've been to Chile and we've seen the operations, and it is state of the art. It is a reputable company. Standards are pretty consistent. So most people here in the region in Chipilo, they're using Brazilian pine. We have chosen to stay with one source.
Yeah.
The supplier is Arauco, that's the name of the supplier, and it's all Chilean pine. We work with a 3/4 inch boards, as opposed to many folks are going down to a 1/2 inch board because of pricing pressures.
I see.
But we have stuck with a 3/4 inch board and using the biscuit to put together our boards as well.
I see. Interesting. It's interesting, you know, we're in this global, obviously this is nothing new. I mean, global sourcing has taken place for decades now. But Mexico seems very uniquely positioned right now for a lot of folks, both wholesalers and retailers alike that are starting to come down here more and more. What do you think is the biggest advantage that Mexico has right now for serving the U.S. market? Because again, there's that competition from Asia that is still rampant and a true force of nature almost. But Mexico is a force of nature unto itself.
Well, one of the main advantages, which I see as the biggest one, is speed.
Yes.
Speed in all areas, not just in delivery. I mean, speed, normally here, product ships in traditionally 4 weeks. Transit time is traditionally 5 days,
Yeah.
regardless where it's going. And but it's also speed in development, and it's speed to market, because it allows us to develop product, show it in, let's say we show something in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, we're shipping it in 2 weeks. Okay.
That's
So when the customer comes into our showroom and they ask us, when can I get this? You can get it on your next order. And they typically do. You know, so that kind of a speed to react in Mexico versus the lag that it takes to develop product and bring it to market from Asia, there's a big difference.
yes.
And also the speed to deliver.
Huge advantage. Plus, a lot of your, in fact, with the exception of the Chilean pine, a lot of your raw materials are coming from Mexico, feeding into these factories that you're working with.
And you have the Chilean pine that comes from South America. But in our case, because we have partnerships with several different factories, we capitalize on what they could excel in best in making product. Some of them it's just basically just solid wood case pieces. Some others is where we mix metal with stone, with wood, a little more elaborate, a lot more transitional, a lot more value added to it. Each factory's got its own uniqueness, but still we participate in there by giving them the engineering, by giving them the design, and by placing technical people inside the factory.
That's key. Sounds
It's
like.
it's key, big time,
Sure.
big time. I mean, as you shared just right with us right now, yes, we have many new wholesalers coming and testing the waters down here and seeing who they could partner with. Retailers, large retailers are doing the same thing. But as I shared with you at the Vegas market, is that in Mexico, you need to know who you're going to partner with, like any other place. You need to have your logistics into place. You need to have the talent on the ground. And you have to have the infrastructure to be able to support and to do the customer service to the final end.
Yeah, I see. Price of product of finished goods, how competitive is that? And realizing you do a different product, solid wood product, that's probably different than a lot of competition from Asia, say bedroom or dining room. But so it's not exactly apples to apples comparison, since you're probably maybe competing against some veneered product or even maybe melamines. I don't know, but how does Mexico stack up from a pricing? Because that's in the key in retailers' minds too. Is what is the price of the finished goods going to be, and can I get it at the best possible?
Well, I think that one of the things, you need to understand your customer and you need to understand your market. And where do you fit in the market? Like in bedrooms. Our sweet spot is where we're selling wholesale bedroom at $6.99 all the way up to $12.99. And in all those price points, you are getting solid wood product. Now, once you compete that, pretty much global competition, that product is coming in, the vast majority is a veneer product.
Yes.
But I'm not saying that veneer is bad,
No.
because design sells. And when the furniture is on the retail floor, and that retail customer goes into that store, the furniture's got to say, buy me.
Yes.
It's got to say, buy me. And when the customer comes up to the furniture, he says, I like the look. I like how these drawers work. I like the design. And then they look at the price. Oh, the price is not bad. So it's got to say, buy me.
Yeah.
So design is important. And that's where we have a big important factor with our partners in the factories, that the design has got to be there.
Sure.
Now, we are currently also developing the Horizon Home value line.
Oh, okay.
And that the value line will be more an opening price point, which we've seen a big void out of Mexico. Most people that are buying opening price point bedroom or case pieces are looking at paper or just very inexpensive veneers. And
Scale-wise, also very watered down.
so we see a big opportunity in developing value product out of here for an opening price point.
And the next question is coming. When can we expect this to show at market?
We actually we've partnered up with a few retailers in which we've already developed product that we're going to start shipping to them in the next 30 days.
Oh, okay.
And we do our introductions in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So in summer Las Vegas, we'll have a pretty wide showing of that line.
So interesting. So are you kind of doing this sort of on a pilot basis with a couple of retailers to start out with, and then expanding it in July?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. That's a good. So we say, and so right now your sweet spot for bedroom 4-piece, $6.99 to $12.99 wholesale.
Right.
So retail we would.
You're looking at $12.99 up to $24.99.
Okay. Again, solid wood.
Right. Now, obviously, a bedroom from us at $24.99, you're getting all the bells and whistles.
Sure.
It's,
And the mixed media and
it's mass. The bed is a statement piece.
yeah.
The rails are huge with moldings,
Ornate hardware.
Yes. Yeah.
ornate hardware.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
Big
indeed.
scale.
Yep. Very interesting. And what about dining? What's your sweet spot with dining? Like table and four? Again, everything out of Mexico. What's the?
Well, one of the challenges that we've had in dining, Asia's tough to compete with dining
Even
because the chair price out of Asia is extremely competitive.
Not so much the tables, it's the chairs.
It's the chairs.
I see.
So the design has to carry the price point out of Mexico. So that's why whenever we do dining, we don't do standalone dining. It's all part of a collection. Because the collection has perceived value, so it allows us to justify the price of that group versus what you would see a comparable set out of Asia.
I see.
Okay. So, but because it's part of a collection, it's got certain attributes, that collection, it'll carry the price point.
Okay. I see. So can you give us a sort of a ballpark bread and butter and where you are now, dining wise?
Well, we have dining that starts at $4.99.
We have a $3.99 set.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
$3.99 set out of our Bombay group.
That's table and four. Okay, wholesale. Up and then you go up to
We
roughly.
go up. We stop at $8.99. That's
Okay.
and that's reclaimed lumber. That's mixed media. It's
All the bells and whistles that you're talking about with bedroom. And so retails, then we would talking about $9.99 up to.
no. I think you would be at $7.99
Okay, $7.99
to
up
$16.99.
to six. Okay. And what's the biggest challenge that Mexico faces again in this global? I mean, Vietnam seems to be the big wood producer right now. Of course, there's Indonesia too, but there's not the size factories in Indonesia or perhaps even Malaysia that you would have in Vietnam.
Correct.
So what's the biggest challenge that Mexico faces in this global environment?
I think what I shared with you earlier is first, it's very important to keep a discipline. And that's why we have the amount of staff that we have on the ground. That's why Alan moved to Puebla 2 years ago. I was pretty much over here before, but as our business has grown, we have Felipe up in the United States on the marketing end of the company. Alan's here on the ground with his staff to basically police and to enforce that the disciplines and the standards and the protocol that Horizon Home has developed with our partners are followed. That the lumber comes in the way it's supposed to come in, that moisture gets checked when the lumber comes in, the conditions of the lumber, that the finishing materials are what they're supposed to be, that everything goes through a filter so the end product is consistent. And since we're working with multiple factories, you have to have your army of people. So talent is important that you have on the ground so you get the end product. So having a consistent discipline is one of the challenges.
Standards and quality control.
Yeah.
That's what mostly is one of the biggest challenges I think Mexico faces
Yeah.
in tackling this global market.
Yeah.
Because when a lot of these factories were born building rustic,
Yes. And many still do.
and many still do. And rustic was very, very forgiving. Yeah. And if it had a little crack or this or that,
It was part of the look.
it was
It's
part
right.
Of, it's
You
part
could
of the
you could
look.
explain it right away.
Now you put a finish on product and it's got a crack, well, that's not going to fly. Customers expect to get product the way you showed it in your
Yes.
shows.
Yes.
So discipline is one of the challenges. And the other challenges is that in this environment here, being able to get the right kind of people working for you. Because there is a lot of business.
Yes.
There's a lot of folks coming in here now trying to develop relationships. It's kind of like a miniature Vietnam. You know, I saw in your video how some owners have been there established for many years, like we have been here.
Yes.
Now you have people coming in here, and there's not a lot of choices. The better factories are already partnered up.
Yeah.
So they either need to invest into a current factory, but not just financially. They have to be committed to invest time, effort, and money, people, infrastructure, to be able to come up with what we've been able to do.
They have to teach them,
Sure.
and not everybody learns.
No. Well, Alan, you're here on the ground. You're down, based down here. Is there a challenge in terms of, with all this other business coming in? We drove by the Volkswagen plant yesterday, which is huge. And there's another automotive manufacturer in Puebla also. Audi. So, plus all, so there seems like there's competition for workers, perhaps similar to what we may be seeing in Vietnam. What's the turnover like? I mean, are you seeing any challenges there in terms of factories being able, that you work with, I'm talking about factories that you work with, being able to retain workers, or how do you do that here?
Well, I've mostly noticed that owners that pay a little bit more to their employees, they usually keep their staff for a longer period of time. There's always like a season in the furniture industry where there's a lot more work maybe in a certain time of year, so sometimes there is some layoffs in that period, but mostly there is an abundant workforce available.
It's like anything else. You treat your employees right. You give them a good environment where to work in.
Yeah.
You pay them more,
Yes.
so they feel that they're being compensated fairly. They'll stay with you.
Sure.
But talented workers, it's key that you keep them.
You can't let those go.
You can't let those go.
Does Horizon Home have a say or a role in helping the factories understand this or make sure that we keep our best people? Do you kind of help to
We
because
preach that all the time,
yes.
and in some cases, we have even developed people within Horizon Home, and then we transfer them over to the factory.
Oh, I see.
Especially in key areas. Okay, the key areas like in finishing or some handcrafted area, you really have to maintain those people because you don't want to be rotating those positions because you get variances.
I think furniture manufacturing seems to kind of get a bad rap all over the world. In China, we hear that young people don't want to work in a furniture plant. In the U.S., we hear that where the furniture manufacturing has left, young people don't want to work in a furniture plant. Is there some of that too in Mexico that you've seen?
I think there's less of that here. Like, for example, here in Chipilo, this town, I think is about 8,000 people, just the immediate area. And they have the luxury of basically walking to work,
Sure.
or just jumping on their bike and just biking to work, as opposed to getting on a bus and going to an automotive plant that may be an hour for them away, and then they may have to catch 2 or 3 buses to get there. It's comfortable for them to work in this area.
There's a sense of pride and ownership, and I believe people come here to work happy, and they like what they do.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get to see some of that as we do the tour. Very
In
good.
Asia, basically, you have a lot of folks that have left their home
Yeah.
and they've gone into major areas of industrial areas and living near a plant,
Especially in China.
especially in China.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, the person lives down the street.
Yeah.
The cost of living is low because they're not in a big hub. Okay? And they can still enjoy their regular life and have work nearby.
Like this factory right here, I would say that half of the employees live within 3-4 blocks.
Okay.
So many of them go to lunch at their lunch break at their home and they come back.
Sure. Very
So
convenient.
that's very convenient, still very family oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly I found this town to be wonderful.
Yeah. Now there are 5 other plants in the Puebla region that you all work with. Are they, how close are they all, some of those also in Chapila? Or?
3 of them are like within a mile
Okay,
from here. Another one is about 4 miles.
okay,
And then we have one factory that's on the outskirts of Puebla that is a cooperative,
okay.
a sort of a cooperative. And it's in a town that basically needs work. So we have been providing work for that factory now for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And we have about 50 workers working in that factory.
All right.
That's about 90 miles out?
It's about 90 miles from here.
Okay, okay. So all told, in the factories, the 6 in the Puebla region, how many workers altogether would you guess?
Altogether, I would say close to 400.
Okay. And how
That does not include Guadalajara.
No, I was going to ask you, what about the Guadalajara? So there are 2 that you are associated with in
The
Guadalajara.
Guadalajara plant, between both of them, is right around 100.
Between both, okay.
In between both.
Okay, excellent.
And in Guadalajara is where we make a lot of our mixed media goods.
Yeah, I think we should make a note on the wood because our wood comes from sustainable forests in Chile, in which they rotate the crops. So they're given a chance for the forest to regrow again. And for every tree that they cut down, there could be 7, 10 more trees that they plant.
Sure.
And
Let me ask you this, Alan. Sorry to interrupt, but this is kind of an important part of this. How quickly does it take to get a tree from the Chilean pine tree to kind of reach maturity where it can be
Harvested.
To be harvested? Do you have a sense of that?
yes, it's around 25 to 30 years,
25 to 30 years, okay.
approximately.
And Brazilian pine
Brazilian
is shorter.
15 to 20 years.
15 to 20 years.
So
Interesting.
Brazilian pine is a lot less denser than Chilean. Chilean is a bit more beefier, has more density
Yeah.
because it's a more slower growth wood. So this kind of helps out when you're drying it and when you finish the kill dry and you turn it into furniture, there's less warpage and shrinkage because the wood is more dense.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
But the sustainability story seems to me to be a key marketing opportunity, particularly for younger consumers in the U.S. market. You know, you're dealing with real wood, and we know that around the world there's certain programs like the CITES program that are regulating the harvesting or the use of certain woods like rosewood, for example. So this type of material, woods in general, are probably becoming more scarce unless they're sustainably harvested. Is that a marketing opportunity that you
No,
see?
it is actually documented in the United Nations and the panel against climate change, where these wood forests, these pine forests where they're doing plantations, since wood is made out of carbon practically, it's called carbon sequestration, which the trees are pretty much sucking out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning it from a gas into solid wood.
Yes.
So
Interesting.
you're actually cleaning the atmosphere with trees.
Right.
So as long as the furniture is disposed of properly, this means that it's not being burned, that's being recycled, maybe turned at the end of its lifespan into like an MDF board or reused again, or something like that. It actually helps in cleaning the atmosphere.
That's great.
These forest plantations.
And we're sitting at a table that you have in your line, right, that is made with reclaimed?
This whole top right here is made out of reclaimed lumber.
Wow.
And then the bases are hand-forged iron.
Wow.
But the top, this is all reclaimed lumber.
Excellent.
It's old beams from old construction sites.
So we're very excited of going into this next decade. We're very happy to be in this region. We're looking forward for another 25 years of being here. We're here to stay.
Yep.
We made our roots here, like we've made in Guadalajara, and we'll just keep on growing.
Excellent. Thank you. Felipe, anything that you'd like to add?
Like my brother was saying, you know, and with all the challenge, like you were saying, in Asia, when we don't know where that's going to head to, okay? It just seems like one thing after another is compounding the situation in Asia and making it harder to program out product. And there's a cluster of demand in one region, and there's not enough factories, and there's not enough capacity. Lead times get longer. So, you know, we're looking at all those things and seeing what kind of opportunities that brings for this region to fill any gap or void that is lacking, you know, from over there. Our value line is probably something that will help us gauge that. You know, if we see our customers gravitate towards it versus trying to bring that in from afar, from overseas, then that's something that we can build on. You know, with timely designs and the price points that are below what they're typically used to seeing out of this region. So we have good expectations for that.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Well said.
Well, thank you, Tom.
All right, again, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this facility here is in two sections. We have 50,000 square feet here in the front section, and we have 50,000 square feet in the back section. The back section is going to be used to store our lumber, primarily our lumber and equipment that we're not using for future expansion. And this front section right here is where we are basically all finished goods. So this is going to be the warehouse where customers could buy direct. So let's say customers in Texas. I mean, basically we're just 3 days away from them. And what's going to be inventoried here is going to mirror the inventory that we have in the domestic warehouses in the United States.
Okay.
So if they
Interesting,
order that,
Okay.
our office here will be all set up. We'll have staff here, pull the order, truck comes in, ship it out.
Cool. Very good. It's exciting. And so
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
you're on the move.
Oh yeah, we're getting ready for the 2020,
Yes. Not just the year, but the decade.
the decade.
That's it.
So here we have, some of our lumber that we're not able to store inside, so it's here in this area. So we usually stock about 50 to 60 containers of lumber that we bring in from Chile. So that's pretty much good for about 250 truckloads of
Okay.
furniture.
So about 50 to 60 containers. you
50 to
said?
60 containers.
And how long? How is that? A month or 2 months? How long? Or will
Well,
that last
depending
you?
upon the season, we program out with the lumber suppliers.
Oh, I see.
So the factories have their cuttings, and we have so much lumber already reserved. So it's brought in on a schedule as needed
I
to
see.
come in to supply for the production.
Plus, it's something you never want to run out of.
No. So that's good for about 250 truckloads
Right.
of furniture. Okay, finished goods.
So the back portion of our new distribution center, that's going to be used for lumber storage. That's going to open up this area here
yeah.
to be able to expand more production.
Oh, good.
We have our shipping office here with Horizon Home people. As I shared with you, Horizon Home staff
Yes.
checks the packaging and does all the loading. Alan, who's stationed here in Puebla, is staging materials, is staging product that's coming from this factory and from several other factories where we're doing consolidation. Like I said, we have close to 1,000 SKUs in our line. So you could only be able to give that kind of mix as a one-stop shop to your customer if you have a place where you can consolidate your orders. So in this warehouse, we have product that's manufactured in Guadalajara and in the cluster of factories that we do business with here in Puebla.
A lot of finished goods ready to get going
Yeah,
out the door.
Basically, we have here, we basically have anywhere in between 1,500 to 2,000 pieces at any given time here. But this is all sold merchandise.
Yes, yes.
This is just all moving.
Yeah.
Once we move next door, then we'll have inventory there.
Yes, and this will be more production.
This will be more production. So Horizon Home has its own trucks
Oh, okay.
in which we do all our own shuttling.
How many trucks do you have?
We only have 2,
Okay.
but basically we bring in product because they're so close by.
Yeah.
You know, the factory that's 90 miles from here, they bring their product here,
I see.
they deliver here. But the rest of the factories here, we concentrate the merchandise here.
Okay. Goods going out the door, and business just humming along.
That's
essentially.
right. Now here we have our bedrooms and consoles going through the final check.
This is the internal packaging. Okay, then it goes in a box.
Right.
Okay. So you got a foam corner block, foam wrap, shrink wrap. Before it even goes in the box.
You know, I don't know of anybody who's doing this type of packaging here in this area. These are things that changes that have happened with Alan coming here on the ground, as far as the foam corner blocks, the added cardboard around all the edges of the furniture. That's all added value, so we're making sure that the product gets clean, delivered to the customer.
Yes.
And then it'll
With
go
no
in a
issues.
Full double corrugated, double-sided box.
So we do have a crew of people that the product goes through a final inspection. It gets detailed, it gets cleaned out.
Light get checked and signed off before packaging.
Glass gets cleaned, all the production dust gets removed.
So he's basically just kind of wiping it down.
Cleaning them out before it gets packed.
Well, they also, there's touch-up that's done here as well.
Okay. Yeah. This is.
You know, we call it attention to detail.
Yes.
That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Attention to detail. So
Oh, this is great. Let me.
You know,
do
they're-
this. Look at this.
instead of just coming off the line, a spray gun is not going to get absolutely everything. That final touch of making sure that the product has got attention to detail goes a long way as well. These are all things that we have incorporated when we partner up with a factory. These are things that they didn't do before. So here's product coming off the line. It gets inspected, then it goes into inventory.
Oh, that's
So he's one of our inspectors here.
Okay.
So his job is to be going to this factory and another factory as well.
Good. Looks very good. So here we have, are these
Full extension glides.
full extension gloves? They're covered up. Okay.
Because during the finish process, you cap them. You
Oh,
remove
okay,
that.
okay.
And in Asia, they tape it. And here we have a cover that goes right over it.
See, I see something new every time I come into one of these plants.
So we put this finishing line in here.
How long ago was that?
This line has been here now for a year.
So how many lines does this facility have?
This is the complete line of this facility.
Oh,
So you
complete line.
have about what did we say yesterday? About 900 feet.
So there was a smaller one in here before?
It was just a wax factory.
Oh, it's just, no, oh, I see, okay.
This was just a wax factory before. There was no finishing done here before. So actually this line was put in about a year and a half ago.
Okay, okay.
Here the stain gets put on and you put a white finish on it.
So this is where the handwork comes in.
Right.
Combination of the handwork and the spraying.
So basically here the product is come in from sanding,
Okay.
and here's where the product is touched up before it goes into the finishing line.
Okay.
So
Okay.
here we have
Tom
Misael,
Russell, yeah, go ahead. Ralph Orozco.
who is another one of our Horizon Home team members, and then Alejandro, who is our finishing technician.
Okay.
So everything goes through the development process as far as the finish,
Yeah.
and then Alejandro here is on hand to oversee and to train our people once finishes are established,
I see.
and the process as well.
Okay.
Here, right before we go into the finishing line, the product is checked, it is detailed before going into the finishing line.
Okay.
If it needs additional sanding or touch-up, it is put aside, and they move on to the next one to get it into the finishing line, which, like I shared with you, it's about 900 feet long. So this right here is where we have the mill area where we're machining the product.
Okay.
Then it goes into the sanding area, then on into the finishing area, and then into finished goods.
Yeah, the sanding area is enclosed. It's over there behind that wall. We try to contain the contamination into the finishing line.
In our construction, Tom, we standardize all of our boards for our tops and our sides, fronts of our drawers, have to have this biscuit insert, which is pretty much like a stringer. For example, like in a surfboard that keeps both planks together. So what do we achieve by using the biscuit insert is we have an increased contact area with glue in between the wood, and we also give it some tolerance for some expansion and some contraction properties. And since we're using solid wood, there can be some movement. So this helps the wood have some breathing room without splitting or compromising the build quality. So this is a standard that we have with all of our suppliers, that they have to adhere to this type of construction.
And then again, we're using the 3/4 inch lumber with the Chilean pine.
And I'll explain to you in a bit how we can verify the sourcing of our lumber. It needs to be accounted for by the International Panel Against Climate Change, which is the IPCC. And this is a country code, Chile. So what this guarantees is that this was not from illegal harvesting. It's something that was legally cut, and it's been accounted for and was exported from Chile legally too also.
I see. Yeah. Very good. That's great.
And it has sanitary, and also doesn't have any pests or any type of things that
Bugs
can
or
compromise.
anything. So that's part of it. Is it fumigated or
Yes,
something?
fumigated.
Okay, yeah. Very good.
So it's called a chain of custody. That means that since the moment it's been cut from the forest to the lumber yard to the container ship that it goes and gets to us, everything's accounted for.
I see.
So it doesn't get contaminated by illegal deforestation.
Very good. And what are these guys doing here? They're basically.
Let's say that there's some components of the furniture that we've hired out small subcontractors. We usually work. There's about 6 subcontractors that have been selected. They've been processed through to do small runs.
And this kind
see,
of
I
girth,
see.
you're gonna see like chairs come out of that.
Yeah. Now, what type of thickness is this? Is this like? This is thicker than the 3/4
This is an inch and a quarter.
inch and a quarter. Okay. Yeah. Very more substantial in the dimensions. I say. Yeah. But still, that same quality and sustainability story on this. Yeah. Same story. Yeah. Wow. Just amazing amount of wood. I mean, we see this sort of thing in a lot of factories. A lot of wood, obviously.
So basically, you have the multiple rip saw, and it goes through all its process of cutting the parts of the furniture. So they have their cutting sheets for today, and then right before sanding is where all the assembly is done.
Okay.
So this is where they cut all the parts.
Okay. Very good.
Now the parts are coming down the mill before they go into assembly. Everything here that we make as in all Horizon Home factories that we partnered with, the engineering and the specs are the same. So everything is mortise tenon. in the construction of the product. So every joint has got a mortise tenon construction. So it's like bench-made furniture.
Yeah.
This is not something that you see that often anymore. So it makes the furniture a lot stronger as far as the construction.
You know, we write a lot about saw marks and that type of detailing, but I don't think, I've never seen it done in the factory. And
Right.
so there's a lot of other people that haven't seen that either.
Yeah.
So,
But we do a combination of things. When the saw mark is going to be intense,
Yeah.
which is part of the design, it gets applied that way. When the saw mark is going to be the original saw marks from the
Rough sawn mark from the mill.
Yeah.
from the mill, then we just use the rough saw as how it came out of the mill,
okay.
and we just sand it down, take the hair off the wood, but leave the rough marks of the sawmill from the original where it was cut.
Wow.
Really
So we
can't-
should call that chattering then, right?
That's chattering.
Chattering, yeah.
There's a lot of different ways
Yeah,
you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, in the case of a chair, because of the shape of the components, they're doing it after it's assembled. When it's boards that we're using for case pieces, normally we'll run up the bandsaw. We just bounce it off the bandsaw.
So were you saying about 80% of what's done in here is for Horizon Home, roughly?
Right.
Okay, so the stuff that we're showing is your product.
It's
pretty
our,
much.
yeah, I mean, you basically could, the vast majority of the production here is ours.
Yeah. So the stuff that we're filming is largely.
It's mostly ours.
Okay, okay.
All the lacquer goods is our product.
I see. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, the technicians on the floor, he's basically overseeing what the applicators are doing, if they're following the standards, and everything comes out finished the right way.
So we have people from the finishing company where the finishing materials are bought, the lacquers, the stains, the fillers. They provide us with a technician. That's part of our negotiations with the supply chain. So we go to the finishing company and we present a package. We're going to put all these factors to buy from you, but we need you to supply us with finishing technicians so we're able to standardize, quality is consistent, the training. So he's somebody that worked for years up in the Tijuana area in northern Mexico. So he got exposed to a lot of the factories that are shipping to the American market. Not a lot of technicians down here have been exposed to the American market. So we've had him on board now with Horizon for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And we have other people just like him that we get support from the finishing companies to be on the ground at Horizon partner factories.
I see. Very cool. Yeah, this is great. It's really, really interesting. I mean, it really is helping us understand how this dynamic works.
I mean, we just don't come down here and buy and sell. It goes way beyond that.
Yeah. You're integrated into this operation. You got you have the really constant on the ground presence.
That's right. Because some folks, you know, they want to come down here. They buy goods off the shelf, because there's certainly a lot of shelf goods after 30 plus years of building rustic product down here. But I still am a firm believer that you need to have people on the ground. You need to have protocol. You need to have standardization. And that takes partnering up with the factories that you feel that could deliver.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why Mexico sometimes gets a bad rap is because there's people that come down here and are wholesaling product, but they don't really have an infrastructure down here or an oversight down here. So the customers get surprises when they get their goods because no one was at this end making sure it went out right.
Right.
So inconsistency, or it wasn't loaded properly, or the count was short, or the finish was different. Those kind of things, contribute to give Mexico maybe a bad reputation in certain aspects. because the people who don't have boots on the ground, you will get surprised.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's inevitable.
So all the product again gets checked one by one, gets its attention to detail before it goes into its packaging process, then into the warehouse.
I see. Yeah. So here again, we got a great inside look into how you get it all done, get it done down here. And this is similar, what we're seeing here is similar to all the
Right.
operations.
Like for example, all of these are factory workers, but they went through a training process of how to detail the furniture and inspect it before it gets packaged.
And each area goes through is a filter to catch something that's not right. Might not be their job, but maybe it glides out of alignment or something. They can get someone over here to fix it.
And like for example, the hardware,
A crooked piece of hardware.
the hardware's not manufactured here in Puebla. It comes from another state, from another part of Mexico. From a supplier that we've had a relationship for many, many years. And he does a great job as far as executing fine hardware. So by bringing that hardware from almost 1,000 miles away from to here, it gives it added value to the product as well.
Sure, sure. Now this what is it that they're spraying on here? Is this like a polish or what is this?
It's a furniture polish.
A furniture polish.
Silicone-based
Okay.
polish.
So it gives it a little bit of a shine and cleans it up.
A little build on it. It takes all the
Yeah. This is nice, very nice. These guys, I'm looking at these guys and they are like,
attention to detail.
they're getting like every inch of this thing. These guys are awesome. I mean, to me, it seems like they're doing like a heck of
you
a
don't
job.
see this in all the factories.
Yeah.
So when it gets ready to be inspected and passes inspection,
Yes.
this is a label,
Okay. Let me. Could I shoot this?
and it gets signed off by the person who approved it and the date.
Who's accountable?
Yeah. Very good.
So if we get a claim from a customer, we can always go back to the person that inspected it, found out what the reason why that thing left the factory, if it was a manufacturing issue.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Very good. So he's putting the labels on there right now that
Right.
we just looked at.
Right. So he's a Horizon Home employee. He's at the end of the line. Then we have the other gentleman who's in the middle of the line, the finishing, and then we have somebody else who's in the mill.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then we have a staff of people that does the loading of the trucks.
Okay.
Logistics of consolidating it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Here's one of our local trucks, one of our shuttles.
Yeah.
So they picked up from one of our other factories. You know, we have our own drivers.
And there's like a science to
So
package these things.
he was trained at the corporate office.
Uh-huh.
So Hector was trained in Guadalajara, underneath Alan's wing for
2 years.
2 years, and then we transferred him over here together with Alan. So he knows the logistics part of the company.
Yeah.
You know, how do the packing slips work? How does the work order works as far as the loadability into the truck?
Yeah.
And then this is the trailer in which we ship out to the United States.
How large is this? Is this like a
It's a
40,
53 footer.
53 footer? Okay. Is that kind of a standard size
It's
for?
a standard size, sir.
Yeah. I
That's
don't know
the
much
biggest
about that, so yeah. That's okay. Yeah.
And as you can see,
Oh yeah. Look at the
Canada,
size.
US, Mexico.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here,
These are US.
you have 3,500 cubic feet of loadability on a trailer. That's like a 40-foot ocean container and a 20-foot ocean container. So you get a lot more. So that's another advantage as compared to our Asian partners. Okay.
So you're saying that combined, in other
Combined,
words, 40 and a 20 foot.
It's almost a 40 and a 20.
It's a
So close to
40 high
60.
cube and a 20.
So close to 6. We're talking 60, like a 60-foot container essentially.
Right, right.
basically.
And then that on top of, let's say that if I'm delivering to Dallas, Texas, truck leaves on Friday, it's delivering on Monday, or when we get the appointment from the customer. But basically, we're online with U.S. Customs, so all our custom clearance is done online through our broker that we've been doing business with for years. And all the paperwork is presented to customs, Mexican customs and U.S. customs, before the truck arrives. Once it is from here to Laredo is a 14-hour trip. And then there we have we have established the truckers that do the border crossing. And then after that, so the truck is basically within 36 hours max, the trucks are already crossed.
I see.
So typically what we try to do, like for our Phoenix operation, we get our loads out on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So they're delivered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So that's one of the biggest advantages out of Mexico, that short lead time, or as
lead
Felipe
time,
shared with us, speed to market.
Yes, yeah. Now we at Vegas we talked a little bit about how the some of the costs are going up on the transportation side, which I guess is a little
That's
bit of
always
challenge.
that's always a challenge because transportation in the United States, we found it to be challenging on both sides of the spectrum, whether they're delivering less than truckload or full truckload. We see that there's not a lot of people that want to be drivers of trucks.
Yeah,
You know, the younger generations do not want to be driving trucks. So there's not enough drivers. Our supply chain of transportation has shared with us that at any given time, they have a couple of thousand tractors that they're not even using because they're still looking for drivers.
yeah,
And then on the less than truckload side, when we're shipping out of our warehouse in the United States, let's say $2,000 orders, $5,000 orders, $10,000 orders. There's not enough carriers providing service, furniture carriers.
yeah.
That are, you know, we had a large carrier that basically closed, which was Walking Shepherd. That left a big void in the market in the areas that they were shipping to. You have other carriers trying to pick up the slack,
Yeah,
but it's not that easy.
yeah,
So we've incorporated more packaging. We've spent more money into our packaging. So when it gets to the LTL carrier that is delivering product, it gets delivered in one piece, clean, complete to our customers.
yeah. Very good.
So, because of the shortcomings in the transportation industry, especially handling wise, and all the legs that it's got to go through,
Yeah,
you know, we've had to spend more money on the packaging because
Sure,
to
yeah.
make up, because we know we're not going to be able to fix the transportation industry. All we can do is control what we do.
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to get blamed if something
Right.
gets there and it's not right.
sure,
Okay,
sure.
so
That's an interesting angle, that packaging
The
angle.
burden is on us, as Felipe just said. You know, the customer's not going to blame the transportation company, and we can't do too much about, you know, what they do. They provide a service up to a certain degree.
Yeah,
So we need to be conscious of that. So we've beefed up the packaging even
Yeah,
more
that's
to what it was just 6 months ago.
interesting. Wow, that's a big story. That's an important thing for the retailers to know, that this is who's doing this and who's not.
And,
Essentially.
You know, we've seen that when we came to Mexico, the factories didn't pay a lot of attention to packaging. You know, you go through all this work of making furniture,
Yeah,
and you get to the packaging end of the deal, and it's like they just want to put some shrink wrap and some polyfoam around it and let it go.
Yeah,
Those days are over. You know, those days are over. We're living the days of product being delivered online,
yeah.
No.
Yes.
product being handled multiple times, the warehouses handling of our customers. So it's up to us to give them a product that not only what's inside the box is right, it's correct, it's quality, but the packaging is part of the furniture as well.
Sure.
The packaging is part of the furniture.
Yeah, that's great. Great message. Well, again, thank you guys. We
You
really
bet,
appreciate it.
Tom.